Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jumpstart Monday. This is the series of power skills where we present 6 power skills in the next 6 weeks. Today's power skill is a very important power skill because without it, you cannot move ahead in your career and also in your life. We are very happy today to have as our guest Mrs. Dorothea Ioannou, who is the Deputy Chief Operating Officer of the American P&I Club. Dorothea is an amazing professional and a very good friend. I had the good fortune to work with her, and she reflects everything that has to do with the next power skill we're about to introduce. This power skill cannot be measured, and yet it can be felt. I believe it can only be measured by your heart. Your intuition can truly measure it. If you have this power skill, you admit mistakes, you also have patience, you take ownership, and you listen in order to understand. And this power skill is none other than humility. And humility has all to do with humbleness. So before I welcome our special guest for today, I will welcome my special guest, Sofia Shiliminter, my associate, to tell us also what humility is for her. Sofia, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Michael. My definition of humility is to go into conversations with an open heart, to be able to listen to the feedback of the other person without judging them. And one example, I was thinking about it yesterday. One example from my personal life is that when I did my MBA at IMD, I remember that most of the professors were brilliant public speakers. And I was discussing with a retired professor, and I told him, I'm impressed because you choose the best speakers to be in this school. He told me, no, we don't actually. Most of them, when they start the first years, they are terrible. The economics professor that you like so much, he was the worst when he started. And what we do is that we give the students a feedback form at the end of each course, and they give an honest feedback, and the professors, they take it and they get it, they improve. So I think humility is ability to listen to the feedback, is ability to change yourself, to improve. And I believe it's an essential ingredient for successful people, and especially our guests today.
May I steal this from you? Because on Friday I'm speaking in Greece, I'm giving a speech, and you couldn't have summed it better than this story. So I'll steal this story from you. Thank you very much, Sophia. So
Thank you.
without further ado, Sophia, I will introduce our special guest for today. You have something else to say?
Yes, before I
Yeah,
go,
yeah, yeah.
please, if you have any questions, write them in the comments. I will be monitoring the comments, and we will come back to the questions after.
And great. And please share this episode so we can get more people on the show. It will be recorded, of course, to watch it. But if you just press share and share this episode, it will help us also to get more people on the show and get a better discussion going. So without further ado, Sophia, let me welcome our special guest, Dorothea Ioannou. Dorothea, welcome to the Jumpstart Monday show.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sophia. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dorothea, simple question.
Mm.
What is humility to you?
Wow. So, humility. I think you described it accurately. It's very hard to define. But it's a key to so many things. Without empathy, we really can't have most of the rest of the power skills that will probably give us a fulfilling career, because I think we've spoken in the past, Michael, what does success mean? And it's very relative. But so without humility, you can't have empathy. Without empathy, you really can't be an effective uh, leader. And then, this goes back to my other, sort of pet peeve when I say to people, we like to talk about what makes a great leader, but really, the question we have to ask is what makes a great or a good professional human being? Because if you get that right, then the leadership is naturally going to flow from that. So without humility, you really can't work effectively with others. It paves the way for kindness, for generosity, for accountability, for self-awareness, for gratitude, for patience, for perseverance, for resilience. I think the list is almost endless, and I think it's really is the key. So, like, what is it? For me, the main core of it, it's not just about modesty. Modesty is different. Um, Humility is about understanding things. It's about understanding that not everything is about you. And so what do I mean by that? So for example, you're in an office environment and you have conflict with somebody. Um, Humility is understanding that it may have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with you. It may have just be something that the other person is going through. Because humility is not only about understanding that I'm not the greatest thing in the world. Humility is also understanding that not everything is directed at us. Humility is understanding that what we do affects others and how we are perceived. Humility has to do with understanding that even when you're later on in your career, that you're still always going to have something more to learn, and that whatever we do in our lives, in our career, we're never really doing it on our own. We may think we're doing it on our own, but we're never really doing it on our own. So, I mean, for humility to me is it's required if you want to have a successful resolution for conflict. So for example, you can if you're a manager, you can probably resolve a problem with a colleague or with a subordinate simply by saying, this is what we're going to do. That person may not want to work with you afterwards, though. And you may not be able to inspire people later. You may not have a healthy environment for the company to progress. So, humility is required in order to have a successful resolution to conflicts. And the thing that we forget, too, it's, you can move ahead with humility. I'm not saying you can't move ahead with humility, but how you move ahead has to be just as important, okay? Because if people don't want to work with you, it's eventually going to come back to haunt you. It's eventually going to come back to hurt you.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Very true. So what I'm keeping is that before you become a great leader, you have to become a great human being, a great professional, who's first and foremost a genuine human being. Not everything has to do with you, and you shouldn't just use the carrot. You shouldn't use the stick, but you should use the carrot and try to find an amicable solution by not using your hierarchical position. My question to you, Dorothea, is because you have extensive experience, is can humility be taught? What made you, because I believe you're a very humble person, but what made you so humble? Was there any advice from mentors? Did you
Yes,
just fail a lot of times and you became more humble? I don't know. I'm just asking to know
I think
and to
a
learn.
little bit it comes from experience. I think it definitely comes from having the right role models. Okay, so I think just like with our children, you know in life, as we grow older and as we develop experience in companies, also we watch other people and we see what we like, right? So I was very lucky because I had a very, very good mentor. And when I first got into marine insurance, and one of the things that she told me that has followed me throughout my whole career was that, so I came into this company, the first company, marine insurance, and I was already an established lawyer, but I was almost starting from scratch again because I was in a foreign country. My license was not recognized, and so maybe I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, I would say, because I felt kind of like I was, not being valued to where I should be. And so one of the things she said to me was, Dorothea, you're very smart. You have very high education. Obviously, you've proven yourself. But she says, the one thing you always have to remember is that no matter how far you go, no matter how much you know, no matter how much you are going to know, how much you're going to learn, you need to always remember that you're always going to have something more to learn.
Whoa, impressive,
And
impressive. We have to note this down, Sophia. Wow.
that has followed me through my whole career, and I must tell you that And it even just happened even over the weekend. Something happened that, that I learned from by watching others,
What was it?
that are younger than me. No, just in the business, in terms of just watching other people handle a very complicated situation related right now to the impact of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, because that impacts, some of the ability of us to cover certain types of trade. Okay, so it's obviously something very new, but I have younger colleagues that are on top of this, and they know it. So just watching them and listening to them, I learned. And so now that's something that I can handle, or I can field a question later on in the future, and not feel uncomfortable about it because I learned from somebody else. So that made me a better professional, right? Made me potentially a better leader because I kept my mind open. I'm not saying that I am where I am and that's it, you
Yeah.
know.
Very
Um,
clear. So
yeah,
being observative helps also having great mentors, listening to those mentors, and looking at behaviors that you like and that you don't like, and choosing between behaviors can help. Do you like working with humble people, and how do you make
yeah.
sure you work with humble people and at the same time remain humble yourself?
Okay, well, you can't ever make sure that you work with humble people. All you can do is promote it by your actions.
Promoted by
So
your, yeah.
yeah, that's really all that you can do. And I think that the great thing about humility is that a really good feeling comes out about it, especially when you have conflict and you stick to that principle when you're resolving it. It's not only a good feeling that you get, the other person gets a good feeling. And I think it's like, have you ever noticed like smiles are contagious? So,
Yes, very
yeah,
true.
okay. I think that humility is the same way. Okay. So when you act in that certain way, I think it's contagious and it makes people think because they like the way it makes them feel. And the other thing that helped me learn about humility was because I'm not perfect. I have been arrogant. Okay. So, okay. And I've fallen on my face by being arrogant. Okay. So like, for example,
Yeah.
even in my life, even as a parent. So before I had my daughter, I was very vocal when I would watch other parents with their little kids misbehaving, and I would be quite critical. Sort of commenting, and not always commenting, but always thinking in my head, well, they don't know what they're doing. My child will never be like that. My child will never misbehave. I will make sure, and I will do this, and I will do that. Yeah, well, then reality hits, and you have a child. Believe me, it has half the time it has nothing to do with you again. Half the time it has nothing to do with you again. Children's personalities are personalities, and you can't always control it. And there's so many things in the world that we can't control. And humility is also about understanding what we can control. And so our kids today, they're exposed to so many more things than we were ever exposed to, so they're going to be a little bit more defiant. So the biggest lesson in humility that I had was raising my daughter. Okay, but it made me it made me, number one, eat my words, and feel very stupid, and but then it made me look within, and it made me really really look into what can I do to help the situation. And I'm very proud of I've always been proud of my daughter, but I'm very proud of the fact that we have a, a really lovely relationship now, a trusting, open, um, good relationship with my daughter now. And I think it came through that revelation. It was kind of a revelation as she was getting older so, you know, one of the major things is learning from our mistakes and understanding that we have to change something when something's not working. That's
But
humility as well.
but before we learn, we have to admit what I have seen you doing today is admitting to things live on air.
Yeah.
Your daughter wants to make an intervention. Shall we allow her? No, I'm joking. I'm
Oh
joking.
my I think she's still sleeping. and then and then even, I mean, definitely that was the biggest, I think that was my
Yeah,
biggest lesson in humility, raising my
yeah.
daughter, number one. And but I also, also, n- you can't help it. We're human beings, and it's okay to have pride. Okay. And so, like, I remember being a child and my grandmother teaching me that, you should be proud of yourself. You should have pride in your work. So it's different. You should have pride in your work. You have pride in what you do. Pride in how you present yourself, but pride and arrogance are two different things. Okay. And so you should have pride without arrogance. And arrogance, in my opinion, goes on the obscene side. You don't need to have arrogance, but you should have pride. It's okay to be proud of the good things and the accomplishments in your life, right? So, but sometimes you can't help it. We're human, and it gets taken. You get swept away. So, for example, I was very proud of the fact that I was I felt I was a good mentor, and so I had through my career at the American Club, I had I handpicked people to join the club, and then you know part of the training is mentoring and passing on the important skills through discussions and setting an example and talking about cases. And so I got to a point a little at one point where I thought that I could just take anybody and be that great mentor and mold them into the mistake was mold them into what I saw that they should be. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
And eventually, though, I ended up hiring somebody who was a fantastic and very talented person. Um, but I ended up having some, sometimes some conflict and not conflict, but it didn't go the way all the rest went. And and although her skills were improving and she was growing, but she wasn't growing with us. And so eventually she ended up choosing to go to a different company. And when she did that, at that point, I kind of felt like I was a failure. But why did I feel like why did I feel like a failure? Because I had expectations of what she should be. Because I was arrogant about it. In the end of the day, I forgot it wasn't about me; it was about her, and she is successful today. So at that time, though, I felt like a failure, but I wasn't a failure because I simply wasn't following my principles of humility, and I was making it about me. Had nothing to do with me. Had to do with her.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Dorothea, we have questions coming up. I wanted to ask you if you want to say one last thing on humility, and or I will recap it and open the floor for Sophia to come and ask the questions. Anything else you want to say on humility?
On humility, I mean, I would just recap that,
Yeah.
you need humility for successful resolution of conflict. You need humility to learn effectively from your experience and from your mistakes so you could become better. And you need humility if you want others to enjoy working with you.
That's very true. So, in recapping what Dorothea has said, she said that before you become a great leader and talk about humility, you have to become a genuine human being, and then you'll become a great leader. What I've seen today is a person that admits to things. She found herself guilty on many occasions, and that's why I consider Dorothea to be a humble person. And that's why we invited her with Sophia to talk about humility. She also told us that she was vocal. She's Greek, by the way, if you haven't noticed by now. But then, after she had her own child, she understood that she should be more silent, listen more, observe more, so she can become a better mother and a better human being. She talked about a past colleague who's now enjoying success, and she has said that it was all her fault, so Dorothea's fault, because she had expectations. We shouldn't. It's not about us, it's about them. We should make it about them. It's their story, it's their life. And if we can add to that by being humble and by having great, superb listening skills, then we can be also great leaders. So with this, I will ask Sophia to come up and ask the question. Sophia, join us, please.
Hello. So we have many interesting questions, Dorothea, and
Oh, wow.
I was listening to you in the back, and I learned so much from you. So
Thank you.
it was great. Ashkan is asking, you mentioned that you had a great mentor when you were beginning. So he's asking, how can we find the right mentor and ask them in the right way to mentor us?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answer to that because I feel very blessed. I've had um, probably four wonderful mentors in my life.
Dorothea, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yes.
I was once giving a speech in Greece and you were in the audience, and someone asked me, how do you find the right mentor? And I gave an answer. And when I came down from the stage, you said, no, you don't find a great mentor. A great mentor
It
finds you.
finds
You told.
you. That's is it. That's my point. That's why you can't really. You can't. That's hard to answer. I was lucky. They found me. Right. That's it. That's really bravo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You reminded me. Yes, exactly. You can't. It's unfortunately not everything's in our control. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We have another great question from Thanos. Sophia, if you can ask it, please.
Yeah, so Thanos is saying, how do I maintain a balanced relationship with an arrogant colleague? Being humble yourself. I think
That's
this is something we've
That's
all
a
faced
yes.
at one point.
That's very common. Look, in my career, in my life, what I always try and do is I just try to be honest. And number one, you have to not take it personally, and remember, it's about them. You really shouldn't care unless it's affecting your work product. And if it does affect your work product, then you simply have to sit down and talk to them one on one and ask them. What I try and do sometimes is I try and shift things. So if I have a problem with somebody, I will, or if I have a problem with the situation, I will say, is there something that I'm doing that is perhaps hindering you or creating conflict? Because that's absolutely not my intention. That usually will put people back on the defensive to think about things. Because, like I said, it may be just your perception. It may not be actually anything really with malintent here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if you're just genuine and honest and try and approach it without being accusatory, you can usually find a resolution to that and
Can you
develop a better
repeat
relationship.
that? Can you repeat that? Because it was amazing. It was golden advice. I want to write it down.
What did
Yes.
I say? If you can find a way to be
No,
to
the first one. The first one. When you said how you approach the colleague, what did you say to the colleague? I like
Ah,
the way.
yes,
Yeah,
I say
I love
I
this.
say to them, is there, I feel like we have this conflict or this problem here. Is there something that I'm doing that might be hindering or creating obstacles or creating a problem or that is bothering you? That because that is absolutely
Wow.
not my intention. So
Wow.
a lot of times you have to and then that might get the conversation going in the right way, because you can't be accusatory, because when we're accusatory, people immediately not get on the defensive, they get on the offensive, and that will not help um, resolution. You have to ask them, is there something that I'm doing? And then if they okay, so what's the possibilities? They're going to say to you, yes, you're doing this, and then you have a chance to reflect on that. Or they're going to say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, well, then you're resolving it anyway, right? Or it might get to a point where the person might even say, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize you felt like that. I'm so sorry. That would be a great resolution too,
I
you
think
know?
this is going to be our excerpt for Saturday, Sophia. I loved it. Honestly, I mean, this is golden advice. You don't get it very easily. One last question. One last question, Sophia. The final question.
Yeah, that's Mariana Galazzi, and she's asking, is there a danger being too humble?
Okay, well, look, remember, humility is not about letting people step on you. Okay. Uh, th- okay, so we're not saying to become a rug. That's not humility. Humility is all of the other things that we described, but it also means being honest, and that doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. Humility is not about letting other people walk all over you. So there is no danger in being humble, not in
Very
my
good.
opinion.
Uh, I think today we had a great guest, Sophia. We should
Definitely.
ask her to come for power skill number 3, 4, 5, and 6. Uh,
Yeah.
Dorothea,
Fully
we
agree.
thank you a lot, a lot. We thank you a lot. You've been great, honestly, great with your replies, with the way you talked about the subject. You analyzed it. You talked through experiences. Uh, you were very honest, and you also revealed a few things and admitted a lot.
Mm.
So it makes us all very humble listening to you, and you are guiding the way for us to act as leaders, as managers, as fathers, as mothers, as human beings. So we thank you for that. And now I
Thank
know
you.
how you rose up the hierarchical
Uh,
ladder, not only
I have a
because
lot
you
of
are a great
friends.
lawyer.
I made a lot of
uh,
friends.
no,
I
no,
made a lot of
no.
friends. Yeah.
You did. But by admitting things, you make a lot of friends, and I like the way you handle things. Most lawyers don't handle it the way you talked, but wow, impressive. So, Sophia, one final word from you, so we can close it. We can come to.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just looking at the comments,
Wow.
I don't think I'm
Thank
sure that people appreciated your wisdom. And yes, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Lovely.
Thank you. All the best. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone,
Bye-bye.
and tune in next Monday for another power skill for our third in the series. Take good care.